their country and arrive here.
If those people in those are horrific situations that I would not wish upon anybody, but if they're no longer in the jurisdiction of Arkansas or the United States, then I don't see anything in this bill that helps that situation. What I understand the purpose of the bill to be is that if you have people here in the United States and you're in court and you're trying to resolve a dispute, we're trying to direct the court which law to rely upon in order to resolve that dispute. And so I guess I want to make sure I understand that correctly, and if I don't, please help me understand. And so I guess I would follow up on Representative Fight's question and ask, are you aware of any examples in the United States, in Arkansas in particular, but in the United States, where a court has relied upon some non-American law and in the course of that reliance has abridged one of these rights outlined in the bill that the bill is seeking to protect?
And regrettably, pardon me, because I'm on a whole bunch of cold medicine right now. I'm not remembering the case site, but it's a case out of Maryland where the concept of a comedy of a foreign judgment created the problem. Comedy is a legal principle whereby we accept a judgment from outside, whether it be foreign judgment, Arkansas accepting a judgment out of Texas.
As a lawyer, I am curious, because this does have some implications for the practice of law and what law judges can look at. And my guess is most judges kind of have their own mind about what law they should look at when determining the cases in their court. And so I'm concerned about the separation of powers. I'm just curious if that factored into your analysis and whether y'all have worked with any lawyers or judges about how to structure this in a way where it doesn't interfere with the separation of powers process.
We have the...
Smith, you stated in your opening remarks that you come under a lot of different laws in a lot of different countries. How many different laws have you come under in the state of Arkansas?
How many different laws have I come under?
How many different, you went through a list that you've been under Tyrese law, you've been under, how many different laws have you come under the state of Arkansas? Why you've been in Arkansas?
I come under every law that's on the books in the state of Arkansas, as you do.
Okay, so this bill is an act to protect the rights and privileges granted under the Arkansas Constitution and the United States Constitution to declare American laws for American courts. Are there not American and Arkansas laws in Arkansas and American courts right now?
There are. The problem is we are going to be facing new challenges through our legal system that judges have rarely had to deal with, but those days are coming because our demographics are changing, and we need to make some things very clear for our judges as they deal with cases that may involve foreign law, and help them understand that even though there may be foreign law that someone wants to bring into a case, that under the Arkansas Constitution as well as the Constitution of the United States, that is the primary focus of our court system here. And I'll mention, sometimes because of immigrants arriving here that are really, they're not as well protected. They don't know how to move in our culture and our society. They're not assimilated. They tend to group in small enclaves, and they feel comfortable among their own people. But some of those same people who have escaped war and famine and chaos and tyranny, poor political systems, they're here now, and I want them to know that everything that we enjoy as full U.S. citizens, whether we were naturalized or whether we were born here, they have those same rights and privileges that I have. But in some of these small enclaves, what happens is there will be some elder, some leader rise out of the group that says, we're here, but we're still going to run our lives based on law from our originating country. And that puts some people who wanted freedom risk of running foul against their own people group after they've arrived in our country.
Can you give any evidence for what you just said? Has that ever happened in the state of Arkansas?
Well, it will happen. I don't have it right now. This is the left bang, right bang theory that the Colonel was mentioning. If you look at Dearborn, Michigan, if you look at Minneapolis, Minnesota, with the Somali population there, the Iraqi population in Dearborn, and in other areas of our country, people are not assimilating. They don't feel comfortable for one reason or another. And part of it is they feel trapped in a system that they tried to escape. And I have personally helped, I think, 4 different families leave Iraq on special immigrant visas. They're in the United States now. Some are living in Dallas, Texas. Some are up in Dearborn, Michigan. They're spread out in these areas. And I'm in regular contact with these people by phone every month, just checking on them, seeing how they are. And I often ask, do you feel pressured to still be subservient to foreign laws that you came out from under when you arrived in the United States? And they say to me, without a doubt, with the exception of the one family down in Dallas, this is predominantly up in Dearborn, yes, there's a lot of pressure for us not to assimilate, but to remain in our little group and not press out and explore this great nation.
There are a lot of boards, commissions, international organizations that weigh in and give guidance within specific areas of practice of the law. Many people are aware of things like uniform commercial codes that get adopted in whole or in part by different states in order to help promote trade and so forth. One of the things that has been popular in the last 20 years has been in regard to family law. I'll give you a brief example. There is the Hague Convention on Civil Aspects of Child Abduction. The language from that is what has been used for the Uniform Child Custody.
Do pass.
We have a motion to pass. Are there any questions or further discussion? Representative Whitaker, you recognize.
This was a good hearing. We got to hear a lot of good information from both the presenters and from the public. There are any number of issues that were raised that give me pause about this legislation. But at the end of the day, I'm going to be a no vote because I think this particular bill is an unwarranted and unconstitutional invasion of the prerogative of the judicial branch, and therefore I cannot support it.
Representative Ballinger, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think the issue of the church polity is one that this body ought to be looking at and considering. And if individuals out there are concerned about that, I think it's something that we ought to address. Is that the First Amendment itself, as interpreted by the Supreme Court, there's a separation of church and state, and that we do a little bit of church law in my firm, and so that it's something we deal with all the time. Is that you want the church to be able to make the decisions and kind of stay out of the court as much as possible. Well, this doesn't affect direct that. One of the things that I would say, and no offense, Representative Smith, but it doesn't do a whole lot, and I hope it would actually never do anything. I mean, as long as a judge goes out and says, I'm going to follow the laws, he takes an oath to say that I'm going to follow the laws, and I'm going to follow the Supreme Court of Arkansas, I'm going to follow the U.S. Supreme Court, then it will do nothing. It has zero effect. I mean, I hate the fact that we're going to spend 2 hours on a bill that does nothing, but that's essentially what it does. It doesn't have the boogeyman effect. I think that anybody who's in a corporation out there that is dealing with this, they're exempted. That's not a hard thing for a corporation to do. I think that obviously when we start using terms like Sharia, which is associated with a specific religion, nobody in here wants us out there running over a person's religion, in particular if it's a minority religion. That's one thing that is foundational to our country. I don't want that. However, there are versions of Sharia that's not Islam, that's an ideology that is not consistent with our Constitution, And so an individual can go to Pakistan, can get an order where a woman has nowhere near the rights that she's protected here under what they call Sharia law. It's different, you know, it's not, and we have to make sure we define the terms. It's not the same as these gentlemen use. I'm sure that, you know, I don't know them, but I'm going to take them at their word that their version of Sharia law is perfectly consistent with our Constitution, both U.S. and state. And if that's the case, they will be unaffected by this. I'm ashamed that individuals will feel like we're specifically targeting a religion, because that's not what this is doing. It's specifically targeting the Constitution and freedom. And if it weren't for, and I hate to bring up, but you know, we have a Supreme Court justice who's out there saying we should look more towards foreign laws than the U.S. Constitution. I mean, Ruth Bader Ginsburg is open, and she's a sweet person, with great friends with Scalia, not an evil person, but her view is we ought to look more at foreign laws than U.S. Constitution. And I'm sure there's people in the state who see her as you know, somebody that they would want to mirror. And if that's the case, I don't think that many of them would do this. Maybe they never would. But if they would, I think what we can provide as a legislature is some clarity to say, okay, just follow the Constitution. That's what we're supposed to do. If you're taking an oath, this is what you're supposed to do. And then if they do that, if they do what they're supposed to do, this law will never, ever, ever be used. That's my opinion.
Any further comment? Representative Blake.
I tend to agree with Representative Ballinger that this bill does absolutely nothing. And I also agree that, you know, when we first came to this chamber, we were all told that it's not a good precedent to pass legislation that does absolutely nothing. So especially legislation that could be unconstitutional. And I hope before we vote, we remember why we're here and what we're doing. Thank you.
Any further comment? We have a motion do pass. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
The ayes have it. Representative Smith, the motion is passed, do pass.
Thank you.
We'll move on to the remainder of our agenda.